Hello everyone, my name is Gabby. Today I'm basically taking a page off Halcyon's book and doing a weird kind of unscripted sort of discussion off the fly, just talking thing video. And this is basically it's being triggered by episode 66 and episode 67, the end of the Future Trunks arc. There is a lot of controversy about it, and the public opinion of the episodes seems to be, like, the consensus seems to be that, like, those episodes had a lot of big issues and the episodes were kind of bad, which means, of course, that the Future Trunks arc is bad by proxy, which also means that Dragon Ball Super by proxy is absolutely terrible, and for God's sake, everyone should just stop defending it, stop enjoying it, stop whatevering, everything like that. And it's like, it's just seeing the sudden, like, mixed opinions, the sudden changing opinions, for me it's just kind of funny, because it's like, for me, like, my expectation of Dragon Ball Super has never really changed, pretty much since this, at the very least since the start of the Universe 6 tournament, but really from the very start, my expectations were I had a very specific expectations as to what Super was going to be, and I think other people had very different expectations, and they're only just now realizing that Super is not trying to meet those expectations. This whole discussion kind of started in episode 66, where everyone sort of realized that after Vegeta was only around for about 10 minutes, even though it was such a big idea and such a kind of thing that sort of hyped up for so long, everyone sort of started to realize, wait, Vegeta was only around for like 10 minutes? Like, what's the point of that? Why would they do that? This almost seems like this is kind of like a blatant attempt to sell Super Saiyan Blue Vegito toys. And it's like, everyone sort of like suddenly seems to start realizing that, and they're like, oh my god, you mean to tell me that Dragon Ball Super is nothing more than a corporate cash-in? Just something to sell more toys? Something that wasn't really supposed to be this amazing, like, auteur-driven, like, Toriyama woke up in a cold sweat and decided that he needed to continue Dragon Ball right now because everything has to continue. And this isn't just like, it's not like that, it's just a corporate sellout? Like, that's terrible, that's terrible. And it's like, everyone was saying that, and everyone's kind of been saying that now, and it's just kind of strange, and honestly a little funny to me that people are only just, like, now realizing this. I know that's going to sound condescending, and okay, honestly, yeah, it does sound kind of condescending, but the fact is, if you expected this series to be anything more than a corporate sellout, then I don't think you've been following what the series has been doing since about 2009. And I don't think you know much about the wider anime industry in general. The fact is, yes, Dragon Ball Super is a toy commercial. Its only purpose is to sell toys, and when they mean toys, it's generally, the biggest thing is probably Dragon Ball Heroes cards, although also Xenoverse 2 and some of the video games, like basically just video games in general. And when I say that they're trying to sell those, I mostly mean trying to sell those to the local domestic market of Japanese boys, and I guess also to sell the big figures and the more expensive stuff for the kind of more sort of niche but bigger budget market of, like, the Japanese otaku. That is what Super is, and that is honestly what a lot of anime is, and a lot of franchises are, and Super and Dragon Ball is not any different to that. And it's been like that for quite a few years now, at least like 5 years. Like, basically, ever since 2008, 2009, when Bandai, actually, it was Bandai who wanted a new Dragon Ball series, and they went to Toriyama, they asked him, hey, do you want to do a new Dragon Ball series? Toriyama said no, because at that point, like, pretty much from 1995, from the moment he stopped writing the manga, Dragon Ball was basically just over in his head. He just didn't want to think about it, like, ever again. And because of that, they basically went with Toei, and they kind of partnered up, and then they basically decided to do Dragon Ball Kai instead, which, well, Dragon Ball Kai is honestly really important for the English market because it meant we got a redub, and the redub was actually really good. The fact is, Kai in Japanese, in the Japanese market, did not really need to exist. The filler is, obviously, the padding and filler are terrible, but you can always skip them, and they are still a part of the show, and it's kind of like, it's an inevitable part of anime, so it was honestly a weird idea, and it was very much just a way to bring Dragon Ball back onto the television screen again, so basically to kind of indoctrinate the Japanese children to watch more Dragon Ball, and by that is also to basically buy all of the related merchandise. I feel like people who are just kind of really upset that Dragon Ball is like toy commercials don't realize just how many toy commercials there are on television on anime, in anime. Like, there are so many. I think some of the most egregious examples that I can think of are like stuff like, say, the superhero time block. Well, I guess only one of those is anime. Two of those are live action, but like Super Sentai, which you guys might know as Power Rangers, as well as Kamen Rider and Precure. I talk about those because they air on like one big block, like one after another. So it's like they're all kind of lumped in together because they're these big shows where the entire purpose of them is to sell you toys, to sell you very specific toys. In like the superhero times case, it's very much like role-playing toys. Like, all of the characters have like little weapons and little transformation devices, and they're conveniently also available in toy form, and you can put all the plot trinkets in and make all the cool sounds and pretend to be your favorite characters from those anime and those live action stuff. Another example that other people probably understand a bit more now is that if everyone has been back watching those illegal super live streams, watching it from Japan, you may have also tuned in a little bit early and seen that show, that anime called Monster Hunter Stories, that was made to promote a 3DS game. And the 3DS game also had some other like different merchandise, stuff like that as well. So it's like, it's always like this. There are a lot of shows like this. Another example you guys also might really remember is like Yu-Gi-Oh! Even if Yu-Gi-Oh! Started off a little bit differently because it was actually a Weekly Shonen Jump property, and it's like, it's a long story, but basically Yu-Gi-Oh! Nowadays, of course, that it's got to do with promoting all the new expansions of the cards, and the cards are like part of the game and a part of the anime, and it's like every time they do like a big reboot of like the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! Stuff, they also did a big reboot of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. Well, I mean, not reboot, just like a different continuity, different season, whatever you actually call it for Yu-Gi-Oh! Fans. And it's like, anime's always been like that. And also Dragon Ball, I think people don't seem to realize, but basically, yeah, ever since Dragon Ball Kai, pretty much every piece of Dragon Ball related material, except for maybe, I guess, Jaco the Galactic Patrolman, but now it is Jaco the Galactic Patrolman. Besides that, everything has basically just been a big, like, there's been big promotional ties behind it. There's always a reason why you do it. It's like there to sell something. It's not there because these creative minds just suddenly had a burst of inspiration and had to create this thing in the first place. And even if they don't necessarily get money out of it, the fact is, if they don't get merchandise sales out of it, they think that Dragon Ball is not profitable and they're just not going to make anything new. That is what happened with Dragon Ball Kai. Dragon Ball Kai initially only went to the Cell Saga. It ended kind of prematurely because the merchandise sales weren't very good. Even though the TV ratings were good, the merchandise sales weren't good, so they just kind of stopped it, and that was the end of Dragon Ball Kai, and they only decided to bring Dragon Ball Kai back because Toei's other thing, which was Toriko, after that was like struggling even more in both aspects, so like the merchandise and the ratings, so they pretty much just cut off Toriko. They ended Toriko prematurely, and then they decided to make... They brought Dragon Ball Kai back for the Brood Saga to do that, and after that we went to Dragon Ball Super. And even if you think that stuff like, say, Battle of Gods wasn't a toy commercial because Toriyama was involved in it, and he clearly it wasn't particularly merchandise friendly that much, but I mean, the thing about Battle of Gods is, it was initially Toei's idea, and the idea of the God of Destruction, Beerus, and the Super Saiyan God were always part of the initial concept. The entire point was there's a new enemy and Goku gets a new form to beat them. Like maybe the personality of Beerus and the motivations of Beerus and the design itself of Super Saiyan God were changed drastically when Toriyama found out about it, because he basically decided pretty much after Dragon Ball Evolution, it just was terrible, and they partially because Hollywood basically didn't listen to his ideas at all. So when he saw Battle of Gods, he decided to get involved. But even then, like, you can't deny the fact it is still there. They did still bring Dragon Ball back for a movie because they wanted to sell a thing of a new formed Goku and of a new villain and stuff like that. And I guess they decided they didn't want to like go back and go around and talk about, just revisit the old parts of Dragon Ball Z, because when they did that with Kai, the merchandise didn't work. So they decided to do something new. And Resurrection F especially also, if you do that, Resurrection F, like from the start, even though Toriyama penned the script and the ideas, at least some of the ideas behind it, the fact is Resurrection F is so merchandise friendly. It is a giant toy commercial because Goku and Vegeta get new forms for no reason. Frieza gets a new form for a very small reason. that not many people seem to really buy, Gohan loses a form so he can get another form that's more merchandise friendly. Other characters inexplicably also get redesigns, and some characters don't get redesigns, and they bring a lot of the fan favorite characters back, although they don't necessarily do anything plot relevant, but they bring them all back. It's like Resurrection F was definitely that was also definitely a toy commercial. That was definitely them trying to sell things, and it worked so well that they decided to just go balls to the wall and just go into a new series and just keep doing that. Not just wait for a new movie every 2 years to get more money. Just do a new weekly series. Just take some people, take some animators off from One Piece, take some money, take your things, do Dragon Ball Super. Just make more Dragon Ball, because if Toriyama's on board, we can just make more Dragon Ball and sell more Dragon Ball Heroes cards to the young Japanese boys. That was all that was really important to Dragon Ball Super. That seemed to be the main driving point of the series. It basically explains everything that happened within the first 6 months, and honestly, the first year of Dragon Ball Super's production. Why would they start with a whole bunch of movie retellings? Well, partially it's also to help, it seemed to be kind of a way to sort of get their feet, a way to kind of alleviate the idea that they only had about 2 months of pre-production, but also the fact is it also meant that they could go and sell Battle of Gods and Resurrection F stuff branded with the Dragon Ball Super logo. They could basically make it a brand. They could make Super a brand before it even started getting the new stuff. And the other big thing I think that really explains what Dragon Ball Super was supposed to be is why it took them so long to do a simulcast, and why it took them so long to give the rights to Funimation, even though obviously Funimation really, really wanted to use it. The fact is, Toei did not care about the international market at that point, because Super seemed to be made for the international market. Super seemed to be made purely for the domestic market, purely for those arcade machines in Japan where you play Dragon Ball Heroes, and those otaku in Japan who buy all the big Dragon Ball figures, and that's it. And that's why Toei was spending so long and wondering as to whether they were going to do a simulcast or not. Obviously now they care, but it is kind of almost coincidental that they decided to they actually been really wanting to start on promoting stuff outside the Japanese market pretty much only now that Super has started to actually pick up its feet as doing things that aren't just retelling movies and fun tournament arcs, and it's trying to do a bit more, so they actually care about the other people and other markets, and they feel like it's actually unique enough to sell to places outside of Japan where it's just more just brand recognition. And if you're still not convinced, I think the proof really, the unequivocal proof really happened when the Future Trunks arc was announced. I mean, first of all, the idea itself does sound like almost every Dragon Ball Z fanfiction ever, but the other big thing is, in Toriyama's comments about the arc, he said that he was inspired by a suggestion by the editorial department. That basically kind of explains everything. Toriyama, even if he's writing Super or writing ideas in Super, is not doing this alone out of the pure desire of his heart to make more Dragon Ball. There are people who really, really, really want more Dragon Ball. Toriyama doesn't necessarily mind as long as he gets at least a little bit of freedom as to what to do. So now at this point, it seems like Toei and Bandai and Shueisha are basically telling him, hey, maybe we should just do an arc about Future Trunks coming back. So if you do that, can you write that for us? Write an outline. It could even be a really, really brief outline, and we'll just do the rest. Can you do that for us, please? And that's what it seems like Super is nowadays. Going around and trying to deny this and say that Super on its own has some kind of artistic credibility isn't going to make the problem magically go away. That Super initially was not really made for us. We're kind of a peripheral market, and while it's only now suddenly starting to kind of open up to it's proper revived Dragon Ball, the fact is it was still initially made to sell Dragon Ball Heroes cards and to sell figures and to sell video games and help give more moves for Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2 and give more characters. That is the truth. You cannot deny that. And I know that would really upset a lot of people. Finding the fact that your beloved franchise has basically turned into a cash cow done by a whole bunch of corporate executives who are basically just trying to milk the entire franchise dry and just basically shoving in new forms and new cards and new characters and new attacks and everything, basically just for the sake of being able to sell them to you later on, and not because they think it's going to make a good story. I understand why people are upset about that, but trying to deny that Super was not that at some point is just not true. The fact is, if Super was not a corporate cash-in, it probably would not have been made in the first place. Because after all, anime is still a very expensive and oftentimes risky thing to invest in. If you want to make an anime, you've got to make sure that you can do a thing that makes you know that there's going to get a profit out of it, and that is like from the related merchandise. And that's not to say that toy commercials can be inherently bad. I mean, just because something is obviously done by a production committee and they have very strict rules of what they need to do and the different things what you want to put in each episode, and there's not necessarily an explanation as to how a character, say, would get a new form. The only thing that is written in the outline is just the character gets a new form, and then like the production committee has to like fill in the blanks and come up with their own explanation. The fact is, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It can still, even though it's very restricted, obviously, for making a good story, it can still lead to interesting stories. And honestly, it's kind of why I personally actually watch toy commercials, oftentimes unironically. I mean, you guys might know I'm a really big fan of Pretty Cure. And Pretty Cure, it does not deny the fact it is a show that is made to sell very, somewhat almost elaborate looking toys, but still toys to little girls. Little plastic toys with batteries that can go around and make little lights and music and stuff like that. That is what Pretty Cure is made for. That is what it has been for the last, like the entire 10 years. It has not ever really tried to be anything else. And if it had suddenly stopped becoming a toy commercial, it might not be profitable, and then we wouldn't get any more of it. I guess people are really upset about this whole idea about that's what Super is nowadays, because, like, I guess people want to watch something that has at least a little bit of artistic credibility behind it, or something that feels like it actually matters more than just like, oh, we're going to make this thing to sell some toys, look at this shiny thing, look at this shiny thing, buy it from your upcoming Dragon Ball Heroes cards, and in Dragon Ball Xenoverse 3, coming out soon. But it's like, for me, like, personally, I don't think that necessarily means it's automatically going to detract from its quality. You can still have a good show even if it's completely merchandise driven, and expecting Dragon Ball to not be merchandise driven basically means you don't understand how the industry works nowadays. That this is something that is done by Toei, and it's not going to be anything else. Like, basically from the status quo of like how the franchise has been being, like, since the late 2000s, it is always going to be like this, and it was never going to be anything more. There is nothing wrong with liking and unironically enjoying a toy commercial. I am not going to go out there and get you. I'm not going to go out to get you because I think your anime standards are shit because you're watching something that wasn't made for you, okay, guys? You are allowed to like whatever you want, and whatever you want doesn't necessarily have to be this amazing expression of artistic freedom and whatever. You can like the really bad stuff and the stuff that's obviously a corporate sellout, and just because it's a corporate sellout doesn't mean it's not enjoyable. And honestly, this is why I feel like sometimes like the whole hatred of Super kind of just comes from this misconception that Super was actually trying to be something more than that, when honestly it was never trying to be, and it was never going to be. And even if Super suddenly gets amazing in the next arc, that's not going to change how it started, and the fact that it's probably still going to be the same thing. It's still going to be a toy commercial. The only big thing in Dragon Ball Super is just whether it's going to be an actually like interesting and fun and honestly kind of like one that toy commercial that makes sense and one that you could revisit, or if it's going to be kind of a disposable toy commercial that doesn't really do much and you just kind of just mindlessly watch it and just don't really expect anything of it. Obviously, I'm sure nowadays the opinion on Super is going much more to the latter of the whole Super is terrible and blah blah blah. I'm still watching Super, of course, but I'm not expecting Super to become like this masterpiece of anime creativity. I'm just expecting Super to be a good toy commercial as opposed to a bad toy commercial. So yeah, Dragon Ball Super is a toy commercial, and that's okay. You can still like it. You can still enjoy things from it. You don't need to feel like this is some kind of disservice to the brand, and as a result, you have to hate absolutely everything that's coming out of it. Okay, guys? Okay, that's pretty much just what this rant was trying to say, and I kind of got pretty sidetracked in trying to explain absolutely everything about it, but yeah. Seriously, guys, don't think that just because it's a corporate sellout, it's going to be awful, and you shouldn't like it just by principle alone, basically. Because I enjoy Dragon Ball Super Sorry for those who hate it. I am so sorry. I'm sorry I am offending your personal opinion so much that you are going to try to flame me in the comment section because how dare I like something that you don't like. But yeah, seriously guys, seriously, there's nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong with liking Super. There you go. This is Gabby signing out, and goodbye guys.